Hey everybody. This is the second in a series of short bite-sized videos that Taylor and I are putting together on the book of Proverbs. I have to say I really loved this idea when Taylor brought it up, but I have to admit I was kind of nervous about making a video. Still am. And I can't top Taylor's awesome golf cart video, his golf cart ride video. It was suggested that I do mine on horseback, but it looks like it might rain any minute, so that's not happening today. So I'm here on my back porch where I've been doing my work for the last couple of days in this beautiful spring weather. And my dogs are running around the yard, so if you hear some barking, that's what's going on with them. So excuses for the poor audio quality if they're barking over my talking. But if you don't have a Bible already handy, you might want to pause the video and go grab one. Maybe get a pen and a notebook if you'd like also. We're going to read, our verse for meditation today is Proverbs chapter 2, verses 20 through 22. So I would encourage you to read the whole chapter later on when you have a minute, but we're going to just be focusing on those last 3 verses. Let's read it together. So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. So Proverbs chapter 2 spends the first 19 verses before this talking about the value of God's wisdom. God is the source of all wisdom, and God alone is wise. It talks about seeking God's wisdom like silver and searching for it like hidden treasures. So after this whole chapter of talking about the value of God's wisdom, these 3 verses here at the end are kind of like a grand finale of the good things that will happen for us when we do seek his wisdom like silver and treasure it. So let's look a little closer at verse 20 and that phrase, walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. Following the paths of the righteous is a theme that's mentioned over and over again in Proverbs, and it made me think of a story from when I was younger. So when I was young, my family did a lot of backpacking and hiking and camping, and I think I was about 14 years old when we went on a 3-day backpacking trip to the Foothills Trail out toward the Jocassee Gorges wilderness area. If you've never been up that way, it's really beautiful. There are a lot of waterfalls and really nice trails that head over to Lake Jocassee. It's sort of near Table Rock in the upstate of South Carolina. But the Foothills Trail is really narrow and it's pretty steep in places. But where we were hiking, there was also a fire access road that was wide and smooth and less steep. And it crisscrossed the trail where we were hiking in several places. So at one point I could see the trail up ahead was pretty much straight up the mountain, and there were logs for steps that you had to go up. And on the other side I could also see this access road through the woods just a short way. So my not so bright idea was to cut through the woods to the access road and use that easy road to cut off some of the steep places and the switchbacks on the trail, and then just wait for my family to catch up with me. Great idea, right? As you can probably guess, that did not end so well. I somehow got turned around and went the wrong way on the access road completely, backtracking. And as I was sitting there, instead of my family catching up with me, they were actually really far ahead of me. So I sat and I waited and I waited and I waited, and I finally figured out they weren't coming, that something was wrong. So I had to get back on that steep trail and head towards the lake. Luckily, there were trail markers there that told me which way I should go, otherwise I wouldn't have known. And I actually did catch up to my family pretty soon after that. My dad had found a spot to set up camp for the afternoon, the evening, and had turned around to come back to look for me. So Mom and Dad were happy that I was safe and that I was found, obviously, but they were pretty mad that I had done something so dumb. So the lesson that I learned the hard way there was to stay on the trail when you're hiking. And just like when you're hiking, we need to stay on God's path for us in life. The verse says, "Walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous." But how do we know where the path is, what it looks like, where it's going? How do we know the way? Psalm 119 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." So we have God's word to light the way for us. He left us trail markers to show us the way. Jesus also tells us specifically in John 14 that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and that the only way to get to the Father is through him, his son, Jesus. And again in Matthew, Jesus compares coming to know God as entering through a narrow gate, but the path is wide and easy that leads to destruction, just like that fire access road. So in addition to God's word and the word of Jesus in the Gospels and in the Bible for us, we have earthly examples to help us stay on the path as well. We can follow the examples of the saints that have gone before us, the great cloud of witnesses that's mentioned in Hebrews chapter 12. We can read the stories of lives of Christians throughout history. We can talk to our parents and grandparents, and some of you may even have great-grandparents that are still around that you can talk to and hear their stories of faith. We can sit under the teachings of wise elders, people like Pastor Chuck and others that are teaching elders. God has given us many guideposts to help us follow his path, and the people that are in our lives, that are these teachers, that are these guideposts for us, were put there for a reason. God gave them to us as a gift to help us follow the path in life. So that's a gift from him that we have that we shouldn't take for granted. All right, so that was verse 20. In verses 21 and 22, it says, "For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it." So the author here, the literal land that the author is referencing would be Canaan, the promised land for the Hebrew people that they finally were able to enter after wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. But Canaan was just a preview. It was just a taste of what our eternal promised land will be like for us, as living in heaven with God forever if we believe in him and have a saving relationship with Jesus. And like Taylor's lesson from last week, we see a comparison here between the righteous, it says the upright, those who are upright and those with integrity, and the wicked, the treacherous. If you didn't get a chance to read through those recommended verses that Taylor gave last week, this would also be a good time to read those. It applies here as well to read up on wickedness and righteousness. And I'll also provide some other Bible verses in the notes below about just for further reading, along with a link to a music video from Andrew Peterson. If you're not familiar with Andrew Peterson, he wrote the song that we've sung on Sunday mornings pretty recently, "Is He Worthy?" Which I really love that one, with the chorus that calls back from the congregation and the singer. And he is also an author. He wrote a series of YA books called the Wing Feather Saga that I would recommend if you're looking for books to read while you're bored. But anyway, this song is one that he wrote for his teenage son, when he turned 13 years old, that was based on Jeremiah 6:16. And it gets me a little teary every time I listen to it, honestly. But those verses in Jeremiah are also in the recommended readings below, and they're some of my favorites. It talks about staying on the ancient paths to find rest for your souls. So with that, I'm going to finish up here. I hope that you all find rest for your souls this week, even in the middle of all the uncertainty and the things that are going on around us right now. Even though everything seems changed and in chaos, like I've heard one person compare it to living in the upside down, we can be certain of God's love for us through all of it. And we know that his plan for us is for good and not for evil. and we can trust in His good timing. So let me know if you have any questions about anything in this video or any of the verses or just anything that you want to talk about that's on your hearts right now. I'd love to hear from you. I'm praying for you, and I can't wait till we can see each other again in person. Thanks for watching. Bye.